This morning in the class, we've got a few minutes to develop a very large topic. And the topic this morning for the class is the topic of digital addiction. I'm on, I can tell that. Okay. The topic of digital addiction. You know, back in time, some of us sat in classrooms and were told there was a computer that filled a room that could equal the human brain. And it was used in some of the space stuff in early times. Little did we realize that later on that virtually everyone would have their own digital device and would carry that and have that on their desks and in various places. And the introduction of personal devices came on quickly and almost without rules, so that the rules kind of came behind the devices. And we're still trying to catch up with what the rules are out there in the digital world. There are a variety of issues that can arise with digital things, cyberspace, that sort of thing. So a number of issues can arise, but I want to start out by just talking about some good things about our digital world that we live in. I suggest that there are several social media sites that are very popular. Facebook, for instance, has 2 billion monthly active users. I'm not going to read all of these because I want to get to the heart of this, but it's used very widely. The average user on Facebook is is 30 years old or a little older, and they have all kinds of content. You're already familiar with this probably. Twitter is another one that's commonly used. President Trump kind of helped to bump the system up on that. But it has 319 million active users, just to give you an idea of what's going on out here. Generally on Twitter, these are very short little quips, and celebrities and businesses a lot of time will use that for like sound bites and quick kinds of stuff. The character limitation on that is 140 characters or less, so you get kind of a very quick message and so forth. Snapchat is one that has been popular, especially with young people, and Snapchat has 66 million daily users and in this country, and 150 million globally. And basically, these are about private interactions. On many of these, you see it, and then it's gone, or supposedly gone. It's out there in cyberland. The average user on this is around 18, a little older in there, maybe up to college age. These are sites they more frequently go to. Instagram is a fairly popular one. It's got 700 million monthly users on that. Pictures and stories daily, and the average user on that is 14 to 30 years old. So these tend to kind of cluster as to which one you choose. If we add some of these numbers up, some people are on several of these, but we add these numbers up, we got a lot of people out there in social media if we look at these numbers. Okay. And then YouTube is out there. And in YouTube, there's 1.3 billion total users. 300 hours of video are uploaded per minute. That is something for people to kind of look at. And we've seen what that does on the news with people during various scenes, kind of taking their phone out, putting it, uploading it to YouTube. We can see some of the effects of that. 5 billion videos are watched per day on YouTube. So the question for us is not, is it out there? It is out there. It's a parallel world to the real world we live in. And many people get caught up in an addictive cycle of using their digital devices, whatever those might be. And we'll talk about some of the things that happen when that goes on. But in terms of the church and something positive about these sites, we're going to be able to use these to the glory of God. Some places are. I want to share a few of those with you. Not going to go into a lot of that. But basically, if we have non-Christians that are checking in, we know how Zoom has done during this pandemic. And there have been people that have been brought to Christ through some of the social media connections that are out there. And we end up being able to teach, and actually being able to teach around the world as this thing just kind of feeds off itself, and people click in and sign up and so forth. So there are some pluses to this. I want to talk a minute about that. Here's little kids, ready or not, here we come. When one of my grandsons was not even speaking well yet, I would say not hardly speaking at all, he knew how to get on my phone. And how he knew that was probably because he watched me. He even knew my password. It's like, how did you learn that? And things I didn't realize he was even learning, but he knew that before he could even say very many words. And he still is pretty much of a whiz at that. So ready or not, the next generation's coming. This generation of young people, now they're very, very adept at the social media and the digital world, and it's expanding and growing. They know this stuff, and I'm still learning it. But ready or not, the next generation's coming. Now, I want to just talk this morning about the dangers, or the strengths that are here. Let me go into some of those. The social media can be used to the glory of God with such things as Meetup. Meetup is where we arrange a meeting somewhere in the community, often at a coffee shop or down at McDonald's or somewhere like that, and just invite people down. And many times people will show up at those. The church in Brownsburg, Indiana, has some very tech-savvy preachers there. And what they do is they'll do the meetup, and they've been able to have strangers from the community just come have Bible studies with them over coffee in the morning. And what they found is that many people have never studied the Bible before. So they will come to one or two sessions and then drop out. Well, they would contact them and find out what's going on. They would say, what's over my head? They were studying the Gospel of John, and they were saying, that's over my head. And so the question was asked, well, what do you think you need? And the answer was, I've never even opened my Bible. I don't even know how to use my Bible. And so they started another meetup called Bible for Basics, or Basic Bible, or something like that. And they just started in that this is not one book, but this is 66 books. Most folks don't know that. That when we read about Joseph over in the Old Testament, it's not the same Joseph that is in the New Testament. And people don't know that. That's basic. That's very basic. But basically showing people how to use the Bible. So they do that. All right. What God wants from us is he wants parents who will teach their children about him. And we're going to break that down in a minute. Here's the passage. You shall teach them diligently, talking about God's words to your children, and talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. So the word of God needs to be active in our families. We need to be doing, talking, and so forth. The question that comes with this particular lesson is, if we're getting our information from social media, then we may not be parents may not be fulfilling their responsibilities in talking and real life, real-time interaction with their young people. We're also told a guiding principle here is that we are to keep our minds pure. And there's certain things that we are to think about. And there's some things that the Bible says are ashamed even to speak of. There's some things are not fit to go through the human mind. So when I read these verses, I think about social media and about it being all around us, and how do we wed this, what parents are supposed to do, with the social media that is kind of, in many cases, taking the place of parents in terms of passing information. So what does God want from us? He's always requested that parents instruct their children, model proper behavior for them, and guide them. Those verses don't go away just because we have digital devices. But it's all around us. We talked about that. And then here's some guiding verses also, because if you want to make a teenager or a young person or anyone really mad, take their cell phone away from them. And, you know, if you want to ground somebody, you take that. But when you take that away, you're actually taking their world away. You've shrunk their world. That's how many in our day and time, that's what they use to communicate. So if we're going to discipline our child by removing their digital devices, we want to think about that. Not that I'm saying don't do it. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is that we want to be careful not to provoke our children to wrath. And we also want to be careful not to provoke our children lest they be discouraged. That's two different things. Those are not parallel verses. Some children, if you overdo it, you provoke rebellion. Other children, if you overdo it, you break their spirit, provoke to wrath, and discourage them. That's two different things. And that's because not all people are the same. Do you ever have any parents that say, I don't know what went wrong with my kids, I treat them all the same? That's what went wrong, because they're not all the same. Okay, that's a whole nother lesson. All right. By the way, it's okay to say no to our children, and parental regulations and regulations in the family. I should say family rules about digital devices need to be invoked. All right. And that would start with our worship assembly. Are we an example in our worship assemblies? Don't know how many people I've seen. I thought they were reading Bible on their phones, but it turns out some of them weren't doing that. They weren't just kind of fiddling around playing with social media and all that. And not just parents, but some young folks as well. Well, is technology evil? We've already talked about some statistics. I'm going to zip through some of this. Technology is neither good nor bad. It's how we use it. And yeah, let me get into this. All right, so how do we use technology in our Christianity? We can use it to take the gospel around the world, to study online with various people. Okay, am I a digital addict? We've been talking about addictions this week. And so what we would see with characteristics of addiction is increased use, I want more and more and more. I want to go to all kinds of chasing information and sites. The average person is using their digital devices about anywhere from 6 to 9 hours a day. That's a lot of awake time. When we have these devices taken away, we automatically reach for our shirt pocket or reach for our purse or hip pocket, wherever you keep this stuff, and we have almost a withdrawal from that. And again, those can show maybe we've got a little bit too much dependency on this. Inability to control or quit. I can't put it down. I can't live without that. Indicates that we've got a habitual problem going. And then using for longer periods of time than anticipated, like staying up half the night, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, out here texting and doing all kinds of things. Those would indicate that we've got some obsessive compulsive kinds of stuff going on. And then continued use despite consequences, such as we got caught somewhere we weren't supposed to be, but we keep on doing it. And so we sneak and we slide, and we have secret rooms that we're clicking into, and then preoccupation with that. Just can't wait to get into it. All right, here's some guidelines that we'll talk about for a minute, and then I've got some other things to say. But here's the guidelines on what to do or what not to do online. One of the guidelines I suggest is, do your posts cause people to think you're worldly? I think that's a question that every Christian should, that is out here online, should ask. If I post this, does it make folks think I'm worldly? So if I'm posting provocative or lewd or sexual kinds of content, suggestive things, that leaves an impression with those that read that. It says something about me, the type of person that I am. Our passages here that we're not supposed to love the world nor the things that are in the world. And the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eye, the pride of life, all of these verses all click into and have application in terms of our digital devices. We look at 2 Corinthians, and there it talks about fornication and suggestive hookups. Those kinds of things online can really be a violation of these verses. In Romans 12, 1 and 2, we learn a little bit about those that might entice us to maybe take pictures, inappropriate pictures of ourselves, or post pictures. By the way, be careful what you put out there. You don't know who is out there. And there are pedophiles out there. There are stalkers out there. There are people that are trying to get your information out there. Be careful what you post out there. That what may be innocent when you put it out there can have a lot of ramifications and too much information. Romans 12, 1 and 2 talks about how we present our bodies as a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is our reasonable service. And it says, and don't be conformed to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Those verses mean something in real time. We've worked those and perhaps overworked those in our pulpits. But in the cyber world or the digital world, we may not have looked as calmly at that. The Bible is not a book that's on the side and my phone's over here. These are not two different worlds. It should be the same. In other words, should be congruent. What you see in one arena is what you see in the other. That's who I am. And that's the image that we portray to the world. Is the practice questionable to you? So somebody wants you to go to some kind of a site, and this is a hookup site. And by hookup, I don't just mean connect. I mean have some kind of a rendezvous of some sort. The Bible tells us that whatever's not of faith is sin. And so if we cannot in good conscience go out here and be engaged in some site, if it's starting to feel wrong, then it is wrong for us, whether it's wrong or not in itself. So is the practice questionable to me? What people are getting me pulled into? I'm in the middle of chats or whatever. And it's not always sexual. Sometimes it's about jumping on people. Somebody's bullying them online, and here comes a bunch of people just kind of piling on. Don't be a party to that. Proverbs 1 talks about if sinners entice you, talking about gang stuff, don't go with them. Don't be a part of that. So passages like Proverbs 1 are going to come in as well. And so we just take what is out there in the Bible, what we've talked about and preached about for years, but we need to look at that through the eyes of what's that mean in the cyber world. All right. Does the activity online cause others to stumble? So if I'm out here just kind of chewing on somebody, just making them mad, irritated, sending nasty grams to them, and that sort of thing, is this creating bad problems? By the way, what we end up texting out here online, text doesn't have tone to it. People read that into it when they read the text. It doesn't have tone, and often it doesn't have the inflection of the voice. So there's a lot of miscommunication that goes on when we're just reading the typing kinds of thing. And we're also getting rapid response, impulse answers, impulse kind of thing. And that's not usually our best thinking. We need to think about things and not act so impulsively. All right. As I said earlier, y'all can have these PowerPoints. Is the online activity destructive to my body? Such as, is this causing me to do things that I shouldn't be doing? Or am I depriving myself of sleep? Do you know the average person these days doesn't get much sleep? We have all these time-saving devices, and yet we can't figure out how to go to sleep when we ought to. So we have a lot of sleep deprived people. When people are sleep deprived, they don't do their best thinking. And actually, when people are sleep deprived, they do a lot more eating. Did you know that? And so we have a culture that is very concerned about childhood obesity, about adults that are overweight. I keep coming back to that, don't I? Started out with food, now I'm talking about fat people. All right. But anyway, is it destructive to us? It may be destructive because we become like the couch potato. We just don't move around. We don't get much exercise. And as a result, our muscles and our body system begins to run down. If we overuse social media, overuse the digital stuff, what we can do is we can deplete some of our neurotransmitters in our brain. I didn't say make them go away, but we can deplete those, which in turn, when we're running low on that supply depleted, especially dopamine, when that's depleted, then that affects our tiredness, our ability to think clearly and sharply, and some other things. But is the online activity destructive to my body? What's this doing to me to be spending this inordinate amount of time on these devices? Does the online activity conflict with my responsibility as a Christian? In other words, since we are to seek the kingdom first and his righteousness, and all other things will be added to us, the necessities there, since that's supposed to be primary in our life, does this digital device conflict? And if it does, has it become an idol? You know, there's idols besides graven images, and it may be in the form of some device that I have grown to make it an idol because it's more important in my life than anything else. I'll even fight my family to get my device back. Would be something that several would say. Does the online activity cause fleshly appetites to be aroused? And in many of the cases with the social media stuff, that's exactly the case. People posting stuff or wanting you to join up in this group or sign up here or there. And, you know, we can look at people that are just trying to meet somebody, trying to get sexual favors, trying to find out people's curious interest in vulgar things. And yeah, that can definitely cause our appetites to be aroused. And by the way, those that are out there that do that are masters at that. They can lure you in with just a few words or a sentence or two. And if you start responding to that and get caught up in those conversations, they can pull you right in. There are a number of people that use the internet for grooming young people. And they do that by getting out here, posing themselves as someone else or as some sympathetic person that will convince you that, you're right. Your wife's not treating you right. Oh, if I was your wife, blah, 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 blah. You know the rest of those stories. Or someone, we get out here, we're mad with our parents. We all get mad with each other once in a while, right? And so we get mad and we go out here and we sound off online. And then someone comes in here and they're going to rescue us and make us think that we're right and whoever we're fussing with, they're wrong. And then before very long, we start getting bonding and relationships going. That's how grooming works out online. That's also how people find vulnerable folks. If they can figure where you are, they may want to connect with you and let's just meet and we'll have a cup of coffee or we'll sit down and just kind of chat. And, I can help you. Well, everybody can help you is not an expert at it. Fact is, they may help you into sin. All right. Does your online activity bring you under weakened associations and influences? In other words, are you talking to folks out there online that you wouldn't talk to in the real world? These are the kind of people that, no, that's not my kind of person. I better stay away from these folks. But online, it's almost like those boundaries they're blurred. And without that, now we find ourselves hanging out with some pretty, we don't know who people are. Anybody can be good for a little while. Did you know even the devil can be good? He transforms himself to an angel of light. Problem is the devil can't maintain that. People are kind of like that too sometimes. They look like they're really, best things in sliced cheese. Wonderful thing. And then, something happens and it's like, whoa, who is this? Now, how do we detach from them? Attaching is fairly easy. But how do you detach from people that are not what they ought to be? Those folks are out there. And once we connect with them and our posts are out there, then those don't go away. They may go off your screen, but they don't go away. So our passages on evil companions corrupting good morals. Whoever you hang with, these are people that you're going to start thinking like. And they, in turn, will think like you do. But the thing is, the Bible tells us that the evil companions, by the way, have you seen anybody evil lately? I think all the evil people went away. Politically correct is what's in now, so there's not any evil people out there. There are evil people out there. And the world, because it has relabeled them, makes them more dangerous. All right. So if we answered yes to any of those questions we just went through, there's about 7 of them. If we answered yes to any of those questions, then it may mean our Christianity is in danger because these devices that we have, that we're not using those to the glory of God, maybe as we ought to. We don't have our rules and our boundaries set for our digital devices. So I want to challenge you this morning to think about what are the boundaries of use of my digital devices, social media, my connections. What are your boundaries? What are your do's and what are your don'ts? And how solid are those? If you haven't thought about that, and a lot of folks haven't, then you need to think about it and need to determine what are the rules of use. Now, in our homes, we also need rules about our digital devices. Some people, what they do is when you walk in their house, you take your digital device and you put it in a basket. And in other words, we need to mingle as a family. We need to associate, and you're not going to sit here and be on your phone. Yeah, we've all been to restaurants, right? We all do eat. Okay, so we go out to a restaurant. Do you ever sit at a restaurant and just watch? I used to feel kind of awkward going to a restaurant by myself, but anymore I figured out that I can look around and see what people are doing. I can learn a whole bunch of stuff about people, and often what we'll have is here's 2 people going out to dinner and they're playing on their phones, or if they're not on their phone, they'll just be sitting here, not looking at each other, but looking around the room. Some of the guys will be checking out the women, and some of the women will be checking out the men. You see all kinds of things when you just kind of sit there by yourself. But my question is what do we do in terms of our social interaction? Here's one of the problems that we have seen in the area of mental health, and that is we see people who don't know how to be social. There's a rapid rise in social phobia. Part of that's due to the COVID pandemic, but part of it's due to why people have been spending all this inordinate time out here in their cyber world and letting their fingers do the walking. What they have done is they have skipped some of their developmental steps and don't know how to make conversation. I have people that I talk with, and what they will say is, well, one guy is 30 years old. He said, I get so nervous when I'm around a woman. I don't know how to start the conversation. Now, he is way up in the business world. And I said, well, how do you do it in the business? He said, I don't have a problem if we're talking about business, if I'm sitting at a business table. But I am so awkward around women. It's like, well, let's go back and look at that. And what we find out is this guy's spent time with his nose in a computer and a cell phone and his digital devices, and he's missed out on social interaction. So our sessions, I've got him in a group, and our sessions are learning how to talk to people just in the normal chit-chat, daily conversation, human interaction. Well, why didn't he know that? It's not because he's dumb. It's because he skipped it. And so we go back, and with him, we're doing some stuff that maybe someone 14, 15 years old would be maybe one of those developmental issues. And of course, you would know that by the time he was 14, he was very chronically addicted to pornography, spending all this time out there. So he's got all this time out there in a false world, and now he's trying to learn how to function in a real world. And so that brought him to me. We have others like that. He would be one that would just come to my mind. But there's others like that out there that don't know how to hold a conversation. I used to do an exercise in my groups called the family dinner table. And what we would do is we'd look at, well, where did you sit at the family dinner table, who was talking to who, and kind of what the interaction was. I've stopped doing that. And you know why? Most families don't eat dinner together anymore. The house is just like a filling station. You run in, you fill up, you run out, and you go about your business, and you get your phone out, and you go hide in your room, and you do this and that. We live in the same house, but we're not a family. So I would encourage you to have some routines and rituals in your homes, such things as dinner served at a certain time, supper, I guess you might call it, but it's served at a certain time, and the family sits around the table. And everybody will tell you about when they were a child and all that. I won't tell you that today. But when I was a child, the family dinner table was special. That's how I learned about my relatives and learned about what was going on, and learned what was about to go on. And that's where I heard the same joke 15 or 20 times in a week. Everything happened in the past is not necessarily bad or old school. Fact is, if we're going to have social interaction, we need to get back to some of that stuff. All right. Lest my time get totally away from me, I want to say a few things that are not on the slide there. Okay. I want to talk about why time should be limited on our digital devices. And listen to me clearly. One is that we would not allow our family members to go to certain parts of town, right? We don't want them hanging out down in where they might get mugged or slugged, or somebody trying to sell them drugs, or some immoral thing going on. We wouldn't let them go there. So why would we let them do that online? It's the same thing. Why do we let them hang out with people that we wouldn't let them hang out with? There are online predators. And those online predators are excellent at grooming and enticing and trying to establish some kind of a selection. The mental health impact of digital devices comes, and we see the effect in this way. We see childhood obesity increasing. In other words, not a lot of physical activity going on. So childhood obesity with digital attributed to digital device, that's on the increase. That's also there with adults. Psychological problems, such things as heightened anxiety. We have many, many people that have anxiety issues and depression issues, and much of that can come from time that is spent in solitude, talking or chatting with someone out here online. Psychological problems, not knowing how to interact, the social developments being stymied, troubles in school, because we don't, especially during the COVID pandemic, we have people that are struggling with their school stuff, with the social interaction. We've had a year that many of our young people have not had that social interaction through our schools. Young people at certain ages, the social development is about being with your peers. But if we're with them in a cyber world or a pretend world or a fake world, then we're missing out on some pieces. Attention problems have also arisen because of overuse of the digital devices. The attention problems have to do with such things as ADHD, ADD. These are out here, and here's why. Because on the social media, we're jumping from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. And what we're doing is we are training our brain to have rapid fire and rapid rapid change. Back in the days of Sesame Street, I think that's still out there, but in the days of Sesame Street, if you were to sit with your stopwatch and to time the changes in scenes on that, you would find about every 8 to 10 seconds, there would be a change of scenery. And what we did is we ended up training an entire generation on children stuff. We've trained a whole generation to go from this to this to this, their mind jumping, bouncing all over the place. We trained them to think that way. And now we see ADHD and ADD, rapid fire. And then, of course, our solution to that is let's give them a pill and slow them down. By the way, a pill is not a skill. Eating and sleeping disorders, and then internet addiction. What starts out with the social media goes into other kinds of things out here. Anybody know who Stephen Jobs is? Okay. Well, Stephen Jobs is or was considered in his company to be a low-tech parent. And there were some other people with him. And basically, when they were asked about their children, what they told the media is that their children are limited in the use of their devices during the week to about 30 minutes of tech time a day. Now, here's people that are kind of tops in their industry, but they realize that you can overdo this stuff. And by limiting the time a child or teen is online after school, it makes it more feasible for them to participate in real-time activities, such as sports or playing outside or spending time with your friends or quality time with the family. And that's part of it. Cyberbullying, that can be very serious where folks go in there and just attack folks, gang up on them. And sometimes people end up trying to talk other folks into suicide. You'd be better off if somebody just kill you. All kinds of nasty stuff out there. Families getting in squabbles with each other out here in this. All right. So here's a few tips, and I'm going to end with this. A few tips to use with our digital devices. Teach our children that using the internet for entertainment is a privilege. It's a privilege that is earned after other responsibilities are completed, such as homework and chores and studying and practicing the musical instrument if you're into that. That's number one. Teach your children that it's a privilege. Plan family and friend activities that do not include the internet or watching TV. We'll throw TV in there now. Rather than putting restrictions on other devices, let's look at some things that are more positive. Laptops, smartphones, computers, those need to be in shared spaces. And also, parents need to lead in these things by example. Setting clear boundaries and remembering that this can become an idol in our lives. And it can also break up not only parent and child, but it can break up husbands and wives. And so let's use these to the glory of God, but let's not abuse these. We can go to heaven without a cell phone. God hears pretty well. We can go to heaven without a cell phone. We can go to heaven without our computers and our devices. But I tell you what, if we abuse them, they can send us straight to hell. That's the class. Thank you.